Hey guys, how are you all doing? This is the MMA breakdown with my recap for UFC on Fox 10, Henderson versus Thomson. I thought, I wasn't too excited for this card going into it. We're used to getting title fights on Fox. They were really kind of, had to readjust their schedule with the injury of Anthony Pettis, but there were some fun fights on the undercard and some nice fights on the main card. But it was a decent card for what it was, I thought. But let's run through the fights. I'll give you my thoughts on what took place and the implications of all of the outcomes. First up on the UFC Fight Pass preliminary card at heavyweight, Nikita Krylov TKO'd Walt Harris in the first round. Krylov came out engaged, threw that kick a few times. Did he throw that? I can't really remember, but he threw that question mark kick or Brazilian kick. Not sure exactly, what it was, but Harris he even had his glove up defending him, and Krylov was still able to sneak that kick around and connect and put him out. Pretty good performance. I think two really still low level guys, and Krylov in his last fight against Soa Paleli really gassed, and it was a very sloppy fight, but looked good here. Took the guy out very cleanly in the first round, and I think at the very least he's an exciting guy at heavyweight who can put on some good performances, some fun fights. And Walt Harris, one of these NFL guys, or he's a basketball guy, excuse me. One of these really big athletic guys trying to make it in MMA, and I just don't think he has the skill set to do it. 2 losses for him in a row, although he thought he won his last fight against Rosholt, but Krylov really took him out easily here. And Krylov, I can't really remember what weight he weighed in at for the Paleli fight, but I think he looked in much better shape for this fight. And he said after the fight he's looking to drop down to light heavyweight for his next fight, which really shows, I think, how seriously he's taking his conditioning. I think he's still kind of a low level guy with some potential, but I'd prefer if he would stay at heavyweight, just because that division is pretty thin thin as it is, and he could just be an exciting addition there. But a good performance for Krylov. Next up onto the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card. At welterweight, George Sullivan defeated Mike Rhodes. I thought the first round was very clearly a draw, at least for me, how I scored it. I thought Sullivan, landed more strikes, but Rhodes landed the harder strikes that hurt him more. Sullivan got a takedown, I believe, at the end of the round, and then Rhodes locked up a Kimura that looked very tight. Looked like he was close to finishing it. So I scored that first round a draw, and then I think the second round I gave to Rhodes. Again, I think he threw a flying knee at one point and looked like when he was connecting he was hurting Sullivan. I gave the second round to Rhodes, but then the third round Sullivan really took control of the striking game. Landed a lot more than Rhodes. Sullivan wasn't really doing, mixing up his strikes too well. Basically jab cross the whole time it looked like, but really outpointed Rhodes in that third round. And if you gave Sullivan the first round, then he won the fight. But I scored a draw, but I have no problem with the decision. And Mike Rhodes had a lot of hype behind him. I'm not sure why. It didn't look particularly impressive or talented here. Decent win for Sullivan, but again, 2 guys. The UFC's bringing so many low level guys in, so many prospects. Just look like 2 low level guys that I'm not really excited to see again. Next up, at lightweight, Darren, the Detroit superstar Cruikshank, TKO'd Mike Rio in the second round with a wheel kick and subsequent punches, but I picked Cruikshank to win in the first round here, and he didn't quite go after it the way I thought he would, but he was definitely finding his openings. I think he landed a few spinning back kicks or wheel kicks, things of that sort. Rio couldn't get the takedown. He was diving for it, but Cruikshank would get away pretty easily. And then in that, was it the second round or the end of the first? I think it was the second round, but Rio, he was able to lock up that leg lock very quickly when he was on the ground on Cruikshank and was really cranking it. I thought he might have had it there, but Cruikshank did very well to defend. He got back up, and I think that's when Cruikshank hit him with the wheel kick that put Rio down, and Cruikshank finished him off. Cruikshank also went for that front choke headlock a few times, but got an impressive finish. Good performance by Cruikshank, but I can't. This doesn't really raise the stock too much for me. Mike Rio, I think it's a pretty low level guy. I think that's fair to say. A tough veteran who his only win in the UFC was against another tough vet, a guy who lost in the house in that same season, and a pretty one-dimensional guy. Tough wrestler with some. I think he has some above-average submission ability. We saw with that leg lock, but he really can't do much on the feet, and I think it was a pretty easy matchup for Cruikshank. But Cruikshank, another good finish. I think he's a talented striker. He's had a few setbacks, but I think he can still improve and possibly go a little further than he has already in the UFC. Next up on the preliminary card at bantamweight, Hugo the Wolverine Viana defeated Junior Hernandez. I think Viana looked great in the first round. I think he looked more refined, more controlled with his striking. Didn't make it as much of a brawl as he has in his last few fights, but wasn't able to finish off Hernandez, and really in that third round, Hernandez started to come back a bit and let him get back in the fight. But I don't know. I even though I liked how he kind of picked his shots more carefully in the first round, I don't think this was a great performance for Viana. He did get the win. Hernandez really showed nothing, and coming off of that quick first round loss against Lucas Martins, I don't think this was a good performance for him. I think he's probably cut, or at least I don't think he's going to do anything in the UFC. But Viana, I think he has a potential to improve, and bantamweight's a very thin division. He's got a lot of aggression and power. Fights, with a lot. He's a very ferocious kind of fighter. But definitely, I think he couldn't finish Hernandez here. Really didn't really do too much after that first round. I think he has to add a little something else to his game. But I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Chigo Camus, who won his fight here, and that's what we're going to talk about now. The next fight at bantamweight, Chigo Camus defeated Yatsin Meza by unanimous decision. A pretty impressive performance by Camus. Really showed dominant grappling. I thought Mesa would control the grappling there because he was so much bigger than Camus. But Camus, in that first round, Mesa took him down, and Camus got like a arm triangle choke from the bottom. Got that lock and was able to use that to reverse Mesa. It was very impressive, and really rode out back control for the rest of the fight. Never really got close with the rear naked, but showed some pretty good positional dominant grappling in this fight. I think Camus is working his way up to be a mid-level guy. Not sure who he should fight next. Like I said, maybe Hugo Viana, but he's not a guy I've been blown away by, but he's scrappy. His last fight against Kyung Ho Kang, I thought that was a razor thin decision and probably should have gone to Kang. And only has one loss in the UFC against Dustin Kimura, who we've seen as a real talented submission guy. But pretty. I thought it was an impressive performance for Camus, even though he didn't really, come close to a finish, but showed some really good grappling. And Meza, I don't really, not a guy I'm really interested in seeing again. Has a knockout loss to Mendez, won his last fight against John Albert, and then really just got out grappled pretty badly for being a lot bigger than his opponent here. Next up at bantamweight, Eddie Wineland TKO'd Yves Jabouin in the second round, and I was kind of distracted during the first round of this fight. Everyone's saying Jabouin won, landed some head kicks. I don't quite remember, but both guys were engaging. It was pretty back and forth. And then the second round, Eddie Wineland was able to connect with a punch from in close, put Jabouin down. He went for an arm triangle choke, couldn't finish it there, got back mount, and was able to pound out Jabouin from there. Good one for Wineland. I actually didn't expect him to finish this fight. I think he's still a top contender there at bantamweight, and I think he should fight TJ Dillashaw, who is definitely below him in the rankings, but I think Dillashaw earned that with his last win over Mike Easton. But Wineland looked good here, dangerous striker, and showed a little bit of groundwork we haven't seen from him before. And I think potentially Wineland could fight for the title again. Next up, last fight on the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card, Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres submitted Sergio Pettis in the third round, right at the end of the fight. I expected Caceres to win, but not like this. I thought he would do it with kind of rangy striking. I thought he'd win on points. But Sergio Pettis was just kicking this guy's ass for the first two rounds. He looked great. He really did. Was connecting with all of his strikes. He would catch Caceres with that head kick when he was behind him and had his waist locked up. He would throw that high kick from behind and connect. Was really whooping Caceres' ass. Caceres dropped him, I believe it was in the second round at one point, but Pettis seemed to recover well, and I thought Pettis looked really good and looked way better than he did in his fight against Campuzano, but that third round, they ended up in a scramble on the ground. Caceres took the back, and that was it. Finished it off. Very rare that a guy is just getting dominated and is able to pull off a finish like that in the last moments. Usually they'll get a lucky punch and knock the guy out. In that case, when they're being dominated and they pull out the win. But for Caceres to get that submission like that. He showed a lot of heart and showed a lot of grit to stay in there after being dominated. So, good one for Caceres. I'm not sure how to feel about it. I think his striking game was really exposed here. But then again, showed toughness and got the finish. Pettis, it was kind of sad to see him lose that way after doing so well. But still a super young guy, and I think he just has a ton of room to grow. I think he's going to be a lot better coming back from this loss. Next up onto the main card. At featherweight, Jeremy Stephens defeated Darren Elkins by unanimous decision. Elkins was outclassed on the feet, couldn't get the takedown, couldn't hang with Stephens on the feet. I was a little disappointed that Stephens couldn't get the finish, but Elkins is really tough. And Jeremy Stephens basically dominated the striking, really hurt Elkins, I think busted him up. I don't know. I really liked Stevens' last fight against Honey Jason. Had a great head kick KO there, and I thought he was going to be able to get the finish here against Elkins. And obviously a good win. I think this puts him in the close to the top 10 at featherweight. But I'm not sure who Stevens should fight next. I don't think he's quite earned a fight with guys like Cub Swanson or Chad Mendez, but. he's getting close. He's working his way up there. I don't know though. I just think Elkins really had nothing for him, and he wasn't really able to come close to a finish. I think that's a little telling of his abilities and how he will do against the top guys. But pretty good performance for Stevens, and we'll see who he fights next. I'm not sure though. I'm not sold on him as a contender at featherweight after this fight. Next up at lightweight, Donald Cowboy Cerrone KO'd Adriano Martins in the first round with a head kick. Very impressive. Martins was doing well. He was connecting with some strikes, but Cerrone stood his ground and eventually was able to find an opening, land that head kick, and just knocked him out cold. Looked like he paralyzed him. Martins went stiff. And Cerrone I've been very critical of. I thought those two consecutive performances against KJ Noons and Rafael dos Anjos, I thought he looked just terrible. Looked like his motivation was completely gone. But he's really turned things around. His last fight against Evan Dunham, and then this fight really confirmed, I think, that he's back and he's hungry. Very important for him. I think that he showed he can get motivated and get up for a fight against an unranked guy and get a very spectacular finish like that. So very impressive for Cerrone. I think he should fight Ben Henderson next. I think that fight makes the most sense at lightweight for both guys. I know Henderson has 2 wins over Cerrone, but we'll talk about Henderson later. I think that's the fight to make, and if Cerrone could get by Henderson, I think that would really show he's really turned a corner in his career, and he should get that title shot if he can beat Henderson. But that's the fight I like to see. And Martins had that nice submission in his last fight against Cruikshank, and put up a good effort here, I thought, even though he got knocked out. So I didn't really understand this matchup. I think it was too big of a step up for Martins, but he looked good before getting knocked out, and I'd like to see him fight. He should fight guys in between Cruikshank and Cerrone now, kind of the mid level guys. I think that's where he's at, and I'm interested to see what he could do. Find his way up the middle ranks of the division. Next up, the co-main event at heavyweight, Stipe Miocic defeated Gabriel Napao Gonzaga by decision. I picked Miocic to win. I wanted to see him, turn up the heat here and get the finish. Didn't use too much wrestling, especially considering after the fight that Gonzaga's hand was all, he hurt it somehow, and I don't know if that's really why he lost the fight. I don't think so. The first fight, Gonzaga was landing a lot of big overhand haymakers. Miocic was also, starting to work his jab. I thought the first round was kind of a toss-up. I gave it to Gonzaga, but that second round, Miocic started to take control with his jab and his really kind of crisp, fundamental boxing. And then Gonzaga just faded, just kind of standing right in front of Miocic, covering up, not really engaging. In that third round, Miocic was doing more of the same with the striking, and he was able to get the takedown and started to land some big ground and pound. And had he had more time, I think he could have finished the fight. Miocic is a guy I've been really high on, even though he had that loss against Struve. But I thought he would really take it here and have kind of another breakout performance. I wanted to see him use more of his wrestling and try to work for a finish earlier in the fight, but still a decent performance for Miocic. After this, I'm not quite sold on him as a contender. I don't think this kind of methodical boxing attack is going to work against guys like Travis Brown or those higher level guys. Not sure who Miocic should fight next. He's beaten Nelson, beaten Gonzaga. There's really nobody else, I think, before those before those top tier heavyweights. Nobody coming off of a win at least, but maybe he fights Junior Dos Santos. Dos Santos has to come back at some point. No, actually, Miocic should fight either Mark Hunt or Bigfoot Silva. I think that's a good fight to make. Yeah, Miocic against Mark Hunt or Bigfoot Silva. Definitely the right fight to make. And Gonzaga, I'm not saying, I don't think he needs to retire now, but he's been on a good win streak. But I think we've seen about as far as he can go. I know his hand was hurt, but I don't know. I don't think he could really do anything against the top guys either. And even if he was healthy, I think Miocic still would have won. Kind of in the same fashion. But on to the main event. A lightweight Ben Henderson beat Josh Thomson by split decision. A lot of controversy over this. A lot of people saying Thomson should have won the fight. I scored the first 2 rounds for Thomson. First round, clearly, Thomson won. I thought it was very impressive how he was able to get the takedown. I thought Henderson would be the better wrestler. But Thomson went in for that, I think it was a body lock trip takedown in the first round, and you could kind of see the surprise on Henderson's face. He was very dominant with his wrestling in this fight. And then he got that body triangle and held it while Henderson was standing. Henderson seems to kind of be notorious for getting in that position now. Same thing that happened against Anthony Pettis, but Thomson really had positional control in that first round, definitely won the first round. I believe it was in the first round also that he kind of spiked Henderson on his head, did that high crotch takedown and flipped him over. Second round, I thought it was a toss-up. I gave it to Thomson though. Maybe it was in the second round he had that takedown where he flipped him over, but I gave the second round to Thomson. I thought it could have gone either way. And then 3 through 5 I gave to Henderson. Thomson did get that body triangle on his back one more time. I believe it was the fourth round where he was getting the crowd, telling them to make some noise, and he was playing to the crowd. But Henderson in 3 through 5, I thought Henderson just did more on the feet. And for me, it's not about what counts more, the point striking or the dominant grappling. You have to weigh things relative to each other in each individual round. And for me, I think those things are equal. And, the deciding factor is the time, who spent more time, either controlling the striking or controlling the grappling. Thomson, I think, really hurt himself by not opening up with ground and pound when he had a lot of those, when he had back mount and a lot of top control. And also I thought, he worked for the choke, wasn't able to get it. I don't think you could really say he should have worked harder for the choke, but had he opened up with ground and pound, I thought that, definitely would have helped him winning the decision. And also, Thomson he's not a big ground and pound guy. I remember his fight against Jay-Z Cavalcanti. It looked a lot like this fight. Basically won on positional control and never really opened up with ground and pound. And then also Thomson, I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I think it's called a cradle. I think he did it in the 4th or 5th round. He had front headlock with one arm, and then the other arm he reached to grab Henderson's leg, and he kind of rolled him over that way and ended up on top. I thought that was very impressive. I believe that's what they call a cradle in wrestling. Not sure. And I haven't even talked about Thompson's broken hand. Broke his hand. I mean, the guy was in a cast at the press conference, so obviously it was hurt, and I think you could see it was really affecting him. But he still tried his best. I think he gave a good effort, but it's too bad that broken hand. He broke his hand and wasn't able to. That limited him. I think he still fought very well, but and again in rounds 3 through 5, I just thought Josh Thomson didn't spend enough time on Henderson's back to really score those rounds for him. I thought Henderson did a lot more, on the feet, and he also took Thomson down a few times in those rounds. Henderson striking though, I didn't think it looked too good. He looked, I don't know, before this fight, I thought that Henderson really needed to get another title shot. He needed to show that he can be dangerous and finish guys, or at least be super dominant. And with Thomson breaking his hand and the fight still being really, close, or at least Henderson not really coming close to finishing, I thought that was very disappointing. And I think Henderson's even more of a point fighter now than he was before, but he got the win. And Joe Rogan kept saying, Henderson looks excellent. Really kind of, I don't understand that at all. I think Henderson looked, it was a very disappointing performance for him. His striking, I don't think looked as crisp as it did against Frankie Edgar. He kept coming in with that big shot to the body, that kind of uppercut, hook to the body. He was using a close distance and get it on Thomson, but just a lot of pushing up against the fence, a lot of kind of point striking, nothing really effective, and with the takedowns wasn't once he got on top didn't do too much either. So I don't know. I don't think Henderson really made his case at all for another title shot, and Thomson really too bad. I think if he didn't break his hand, he would have won this fight. The way he out-grappled Henderson in the first round was very surprising to me, and too bad. And Thomson says, he might retire, and I don't blame him at all for that. He's an old guy, been around for a long time, and if he feel, I respect when guys are in it to win the belt and be the best, and if they feel they can't do that anymore, then I think that's admirable that they can step away. But I think Henderson should fight Cerrone next. Cerrone has a lot more momentum than Henderson right now. I know Henderson beat him very dominantly the last time, submitting him in the first round, but that was very long ago. That 4 years ago, and Henderson, he was the champ, but got finished in his last fight, and then here didn't look so great. And Cerrone was on that great 5-fight win streak, or 4-fight win. What was it? Let me see here. He was on a 6-fight win streak. Then he lost to Nate Diaz. He was on a 2-fight win streak after that over Stevens and Gallard. Lost to Pettis, beat Nunes, lost to Dos Anjos, and now he's on his 2-fight win streak again. I think that's a great fight to make, the trilogy fight. Cerrone and Henderson. Winner could get a title shot, even if Henderson, just edged that. I don't think Henderson could fight Cerrone the way he fought Thomson. And that was the last time Henderson got a finish was against Cerrone. So, those two, make for a good fight, and I think they bring out the best in each other. I might favor Cerrone to win that fight. I don't know, but I think if Cerrone could get past Henderson, that would really, show how much he's improved over the course of his career, and he could get that title shot. Henderson too, I think, would be right up there for another title shot if he could beat Cerrone, but that's the fight I really want to see. Obviously there's TJ Grant, but who knows when he's coming back. I don't think there's been any new news on that. But my big takeaways from this card, Alex Caceres, he's a legitimate guy, mid-level guy at bantamweight. I think people took him kind of lightly as a joke for a long time because of the Bruce Leroy thing, and just the look he has with his afro. But he's a solid fighter. Pettis very talented as well, but still has a lot of room to grow. Cerrone, building his way back up to the lightweight title, a great finish. And also, Ben Henderson, I think, being exposed a bit, and continues his razor thin point fighting victories and style of fighting. So those are my takeaways. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. That's my recap for UFC on Fox 10, Henderson versus Thomson. Thanks a lot for watching. Really appreciate it, guys. Please like the video, comment with your thoughts. Check out my predictions for UFC 169. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.